This man gave me a little intimidation when he walked in. He squeezed my hand very, very firmly, as one might say. His name is Shivendra Mohan Singh. He's the Vice Chairman of Fortis Healthcare Limited. He's a man who embodies the concept of transformation. He has become somewhat of a sevadar. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Make some noise for him. Come on, while we welcome him on stage.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. National Chair of II, Shaurya. Shaurya, I have to do this, as I promised you. It's all Shaurya's fault that you're going to be suffering me for the next 45 minutes. So anything that you don't like, please go and catch hold of him after this session. I've assured him that he will get adequate retribution for his mistakes. National Vice Chairman Raghu, friends, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, I want to warmly welcome you to this, what I would call a snooze session. I have enough experience from my healthcare background to know that the postprandial siesta is not only much needed, but also very good for your health. So if you are not feeling up to it, please go ahead and take a shot now. I can assure you it will be a good nap in the next 45 odd minutes. So I want to start, I'm not a lawyer. I do see some here. I want to start with a disclaimer. I was quite surprised to get this invite on the topic. I'm used to speaking on some other more conventional topics in my past life. And I asked them, I said, why exactly are you asking me on this topic? Because I really haven't found an answer. I'm only looking. So when I find it, I can surely come and share it with you, but I'm still only a seeker. So I actually don't have an answer to this question, so I'm going to go ahead and indulge you with all the questions that I have and my takes on them, if that be the case, and hopefully share some aspects of my journey of finding the so-called true purpose or meaning of life. I'm not entirely confident that I'll leave you with answers, but I'm quite sure I'll leave you with a lot more questions. And if I have managed to do that, I think I'll consider my time well spent, actually. So I've basically structured my talk around 4 or 5 broad themes, and I'm hoping that some of them at least are able to ring a bell with some of you here. It's rather dark on that side of the planet, and I do believe I'm searching for light. I wasn't expecting it to be on me, but I have a couple of questions to the audience here. Can we have a little bit light to the audience? I can just see. So how many people here are married? Okay, pretty good number. That was just a trick question to see if you're sleeping or not. No. How many people are parents? How many people have kids here? How many people who are kids of teens and above, teenagers? Okay, you're lucky. Okay, another set of random, hopefully makes no sense to you, but should make some sense to me. How many of people here want to be rich or already are rich by their own definitions? Nobody. I thought there were many entrepreneurs in this room. What do you do this business for? Social philanthropy or something? Huh? How many want to be rich, or whoever consider themselves as rich? Okay, a lot of embarrassed people want to be rich. Okay, fair enough. How many want to be powerful, or whoever already think they are powerful? Okay, so more rich than powerful. Fair enough. How many want to be famous? Somebody's keeping the hands up, and just go for it. Doesn't matter. I'm a teen mom. I'm a rich kid. I'm everything. How many want to be famous? Seriously. Okay. So. Lot less hands keep going up as the questions. You want to keep it up just in case the next set kind of works? That works with me. Okay. How many want to be happy? Less embarrassed with that question, I can see. How many are happy? Why are you here? I don't think this place dishes out happiness. Are you sure? Let me ask again. How many people are happy? Really? You're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place. I want to do some recruitments after this, so in case. So, if you got pen and paper on your tables, or hopefully avoid the phones, but if you don't have a choice, then this thing, if you can just take 10 seconds and just jot down 5-6 words that come to mind and any of these questions that might appeal to you. And just, it's for your own self, you don't want to do it, don't bother. Why are we here in this world? Why are we here? Why have we been given this human birth? Okay, and whatever appeals to any one of these 3 questions. What's our objective? What's our true meaning? What's our true purpose in life? Whatever your take on it is, just for yourself. Nobody's going to ask you to share it. Don't worry about that. You can write, you wanted to be rich, but you didn't want to say it, or whatever else that you want. Just jot down, take 10-15 seconds, just 5-6, whatever comes to your mind, just make a note of that, and we'll see how that goes. We good? I can come back tomorrow if you want to take some more time. Are we good? Okay. So I guess the question is, why are these questions even relevant? Okay. Why are we here? What's the purpose? Why have we been given a human birth? Why are these even relevant? And I guess to me they're quite relevant, and as Shaurya was trying to get it across to my thick head. That there are a lot of people who seem, I guess, beyond inquisitive, surprised about the decision I made, about the move that I've done. And the fact that a lot of you are happy, all of you, almost, are happy, and yet so many people are so surprised, I guess it makes it relevant to my mind. The amount of curiosity that I've seen that has gotten raised with my decision is really the reason why I'm asking that question, and therefore, really what I'm at least looking for answers in my own life. These questions about what the purpose of the human birth, why we're here, and so on and so forth, have been raised from time immemorial, from the time that conscious life began on Earth. All that we know today is an answer, is an outcome of people who've either experienced it or studied it or philosophized on it. And I would argue that most of our values in society, most of our religious bases are based on answers to some of these very deep-seeking questions from philosophers from pretty much time immemorial. The questions to my mind seem rather simple, actually. It shouldn't take you more than 15-20 seconds to perhaps write down what you believe you're here for. Though they are not pretty simple questions, clearly. I think the way I see the world today, these questions become even more relevant in today's society, where more than ever before in any generation, things seem to be breaking down in the world order. And all that we've probably grown up with, no matter what your age is or your child's age is, seems to be getting questioned and shaken around from the very foundation. The beliefs and religions that we have pretty much been brought up on, that was supposedly the cause of life, creation, are now being used as a very foundation for destruction and death. The general world order of greed, of desire, for everything that we want, which is perhaps fine, but to be delivered almost instantly, instant gratification, immediate delivery. I've set up a new business. I wanted to succeed immediately. I've got an MBA, I've got a law degree, I've become a doctor. I want to be rich, successful tomorrow. The whole idea of work and patience and strife to get there seems to have gotten crunched in a certain time capsule in our generation. Our access to information perhaps is a cause for that. The fact that we can get everything in the click of a button, we can get to see stuff that we never saw 25 years ago, know stuff that we never knew 25 years ago, and wanting what somebody else has without any access or knowledge or background about the strife and pain that they may have gone to. the extent of intolerance that we have in our society today. Intolerance to people's views, colors, backgrounds, looks, the ability to respond with the click of a button of your view of somebody else's view, the ability to do so fast and to reach so many people without actually having validated your point of view. We're probably 500-600 people in this room. I'm going to spend 30-40 minutes. You can spend 2 minutes and put a message out there, my personal view. You can go to millions of people, and that view could be based out of no logic, experience, expertise, research, understanding, and it can reach so many people and affect so many people. And that's the world we live in, and a lot of these get interchanged with instant gratification, with the kind of death and destruction that we have, and the ability to actually be able to reach out and influence people who are looking at these sets of people or information as a base for their decisions in life, and so on and so forth. So in a world like this, where do we go for answers? Where do we look to get answers? Because everything that we believe that perhaps was based on history, hopefully scholars, philosophers, and all the upbringing that we've got, perhaps does not sync very well with the world that we're getting to today, and it's probably only getting worse as we go along. So I want to address some of these thoughts slightly analytically. I think we're reasonably intelligent people who I hope at least use common sense. So I want to approach it slightly analytically as we go through. So I'm going to try and put some perspectives on it, and please feel free to make a note and shoot it back at me at the end of my talk. So what's the purpose of religion? I'm going to start with that. What's the purpose of religion? If you look at teachings of all the well-known saints, who've gotten captured into all the holy texts and so on and so forth, I would summarize that there are probably a few things that they all allude to in terms of what the purpose is. The essence is largely, to my mind, going to be broken up into two buckets, which I'm going to share. How should we live our lives? What is the moral code that our life is supposed to be based on? You can call it following your dharma. You can call it right action. But what's the moral fabric of our society? And it differs by religion, but each religion has somewhat of a moral code. Some are more elaborate, some are more in languages that we understand. But every religion talks about some kind of a dharma of its own philosophy. Basically, what is the right action for every human being to do? So that's one. And the second is, what's the purpose of our existence? What's the spiritual journey all about? What's the way to find our way back to our true home, to our eternal home? So if I was to take the liberty of generalizing religion, it talks about how you're supposed to behave, and that's the external, the moral code, your society, your way of behavior, and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, how you're supposed to find your way back home, and what is your way back home. I think I would argue that most of the religions kind of summarize these broad two contours. So many of our laws, our socially acceptable practices, are based on the foundation of our religion. They stem from many of our religious institutions. You've heard of the Hindu law, you've heard of the Islamic law, now the Sunni law, the Sharia law, and so on and so forth. They're all coming from our religious practices. And all our rituals and ceremonies are coming from our spiritual practices. So if you look at what is it that we do in terms of religion, all those practices seem to stem from our spiritual journey and seeking those questions and so on and so forth. So the first talks about our life laws, and second talks about our religious laws and so on and so forth. My sense is we've oversimplified some of these teachings to suit our conveniences, rather than understanding what they're trying to do. And I'm going to try and question some of these as we go along, and trying to find what is actually the deeper meaning, and what is the impact it's supposed to do in our lives, and whether it's doing it or not. So before that, one more ambitious summarization, which is what is common between all our religions. I mean, if you look around, there are tons and there are offshoots of tons of religions and so on and so forth. But there are a couple of themes that stay common no matter who you talk about and who you follow. And if I can shoot at it, God is one. I don't think anybody debates that. There's one creator, that he is the creator, that there's a God and he's the creator. And he is a general word, don't get me into a gender bias here. He exists in us all, everybody talks about that. And they all talk about a foundation of love, peace and harmony and all those good things. There's largely, everybody talks about that as a basic principle. And I would argue that if that is so, and if he is actually the creator of the universe, it would be fair to say that he would have unlimited power to create, to know, to change, and to destroy. You can't create a mountain, no matter how good your scientists are and can reach the moon and so on and so forth. You can't create lakes and rivers and oceans and so on and so forth, and you certainly can't destroy them, but he can seem to do those with a bit of a tip of a click. And therefore, I would say these 3-4 things: God is one, he's the creator, he's inside us all. Each one of us seems to have that creative power, should we get to it. And the basic tenets of love, peace and harmony seems to be the summary of most religions that you can probably see. So how do these, the purpose, internal and external, and the commonality of religion, how do they affect us in our daily lives? And I don't want to talk about religion, but I want to set that context in according to that. So what do our daily lives consist of? So I asked you all those happy questions to see if you were awake, after which I think all of you probably gone off to sleep. But most of our lives, 80-90% of our lives, consists of work, family, friends, and about that. Within that, you kind of cover up your whole day, most of the 365 days in the year. And for some here, I can see I'll probably add going to the gym and the bar. And for some others, I'll probably add going for shopping. And that would pretty much cover our life. You know, we do that in a pretty good pattern again and again, just change the buckets percentages-wise here and there. And as my little quick poll showed, what do we want in our life? Even if whether we admit it with our open hands or otherwise. We're looking for money, we're looking for power, we're looking for fame, we're looking for being recognized for who we are, what we are, and so on and so forth. And that's scientifically proven, by the way. There's a Harvard study that was done by a chap called Robert Waldinger. If you want, you can look it up in the TED Talks. It's a 75-year-old study, as in it's been on for 75 years. It's still continuing. And he has researched from people who were teenagers and followed them through till their old age and their passing on, and then subsequently taken their wives, spouses, and children to see what people start off in life wanting and why they want those things and what do they want at the end of their lives. And 98-99% of them want to be rich, powerful, and famous. And as he does his study over 75 years, he starts to peel the onion. And as he says, in the 6th peel, he finds that what people are actually looking for is happiness. Though they want to be rich and powerful and famous and so on and so forth, what they're truly looking for, as they grow older and they realize, they're looking for happiness. So you guys have all got it, so you don't have to worry about it, so go back to sleep. But what we're actually looking for, and again, research-based, is we're looking for happiness, we're looking for joy, we're looking for contentment, we're looking for satisfaction. That's actually, at the end of the day, what we're looking for. We don't admit it. We all admit that we're very happy, and we're happier in the evenings after a couple of... But that's what we're looking for. So we're looking for all these things, but we want all these things. And there's a subtle differentiation that I'm trying to create between the two. I find there's a bit of a dichotomy, and I find the similar dichotomy that's coming from our religions as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So this is the context that I want to really set up before I jump into my 4 or 5 themes that I want to take up. So I want to take up my first theme of what you already have found. So like I said, it doesn't apply to you at all. It's finding happiness. It's not yet finding Nemo, but it's certainly finding happiness. So let's talk about that. And like I said we're reasonably intelligent people, so we'll take it slightly more analytically. So let's take the approach that scientists take for an experiment. So I'm going to find happiness through an experiment. In any scientific experiment, there's a subject and an object, the experiencer and the experienced. Any science experiment has to work on this principle, and we're going to apply that. So we'll do a little test before we come to happiness. Let's do a science experiment on sugar. Anybody who tastes sugar, what is his takeaway from tasting sugar? What does he call after tasting sugar? Okay, a lot of people are sleeping, or they don't have sugar, which is very good. almost everybody who tastes sugar, I should say everybody who tastes sugar, will call it sweet. Some will call it very sweet, some will call it sweet depending on their sweet tooth, but they'll all call it sweet. And therefore, the sweetness of the sugar is a property of the sugar, because everybody who experiences sugar experiences the same thing. So it's not that you experience sugar differently and you experience sugar differently, and therefore it's the sugar that has a property, not you, and not the experiencer, but the experience in that sense. So sugar's property is sweet, and that's coming from the sugar and not from the individual who's experiencing the sugar. Now let's take that test and apply it to richness, wealth. When people experience or taste wealth, what do they taste? What do they feel? Stress. Is that what I heard? Success, power. Did I hear stress, or that's just imagination? Okay, part imagination. Anything else? What else do people experience with wealth? I can't hear you. Okay, you've had enough lunch. I would say just use the energy. Contentment? What do people experience? Taxes. They definitely experience that. What do people experience when they taste fame? A lot of stress here. What do people experience when they experience power? So there are lots of adjectives that I've heard on these three things. Are they all proportionate to how much wealth, how much fame, and how much power you have? No. Yes or no? So the richer I am, the happier I am, the more comfortable I am, the more relaxed I am, the more chilled I am. The more powerful I am, the happier I am. No. The more famous I am. So in all probability, neither wealth, nor fame, nor power seem to have any of these properties we're talking about. So therefore, happiness, joy, contentment, satisfaction all seem to be in the experiencer, not the experienced. And I think that's a fundamental flaw of our life that we seem to get confused with. When I have this, I will do this, etc., etc. There's a beautiful quote that I read, which I like to at least share with my family members, which is, worry is a total waste of time. It does not change anything. All it does is steal your joy and keeps you very busy, very, very busy, doing absolutely nothing. There's Lao Tzu, which is a very famous Chinese philosopher, who says, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. How many of us actually live in the present? How many of us are consciously there wherever we are? We're sitting here, we're on our Blackberries and iPhones. Apologies for the Samsung users. Oh, there are lots of them. We're thinking of our work, we're thinking of our girlfriend, if you're married. If you're not, we're thinking of the one we want to be married to. We're thinking of our kids. I have to go back and do this. I have to respond to this call. We're always somewhere else. Or we're thinking of, that shouldn't have happened yesterday. I should have done it differently. That guy should have behaved differently. We're either in the past or we're in the future. We're either worrying about our past or we are worried about our future. Okay, it's either a function of fear, which is the future, or a function of, some sort of worry or depression from the past. We're hardly ever there. For kids who go to school, they've got an exam, they're thinking about the exam that's going to come in the last session, they're not focusing on the class right now. They're in the sports field, they're thinking of the fact that they go back home and they're going to get a blowing from their mom and dad. Everybody's somewhere else, but he's not there. You're not really here, because many of you are on your phones, talking to your this thing, figuring out what you're going to do in the next session, and so on and so forth. So why is it that if we know all this, it's seemingly logical that we're looking for, happiness at the end of the day. We know we're not going to get it from all these things that we said we're going to have or chase or whatever the case is. Why is it that doesn't really happen? And my theory is that there are 5 enemies that actually avoid making that happen. They are the 5 thieves that exist in each of us that steal the possibility ever of finding eternal joy and happiness that should exist in each of us from time immemorial. And that's ego, greed, lust, anger, and attachment. The 5 big enemies of our existence, and certainly enemies of our happiness. So I've acronymed it EAGLA. I'm sorry, it couldn't be eagle. I didn't create it. So ego, anger, greed, lust, and attachments. So Buddha was asked a question by one of his seekers. He was asked by a seeker saying, I want happiness. So he's looking at him very despondently, hoping that he's going to get an answer. So Buddha says to him, he said, first remove I. That's ego. He said, then remove want. That's desire. What are you left with? With happiness. There's another beautiful quote I get about anger. Being angry at someone is like letting someone live rent-free in your house. He doesn't really seem to care, but he's really enjoying being in your presence in that sense. So where do all these things come from? Again, if you go back to the science experiment, are they the experience of experience? And I'm pretty sure you know the answer to that, so I'm not going to go through that story. But I'll share 1 or 2 quick stories, and I'm going to abbreviate them for the sense of time. There was a monk who wanted to meditate and find the answer, and he found that his village was very noisy and disturbing all the time, a lot of activity and stuff. So there was a large lake nearby. He said he's going to ride out in a boat and sit in the middle of the lake and meditate. And he used to get very upset every time somebody used to disturb him. So he said, there'll be nobody there, I'll go and meditate. So he rolls out, he stops somewhere, he says, okay, this is like a quiet place, very far from my village, and he sits and starts to meditate. Been going for 1 or 2 hours, and he finds a boat, comes and knocks at him. He says, damn it, you're not going to leave me alone here too. Then it knocks again, and it knocks again. And his BP is rising. It's rising. Finally couldn't take it anymore. So he throws out his blanket and he looks at him, he screams out at this guy who's kind of just generally edging him on to irritate him and whatever. And what does he find? He finds there's nobody on the boat. The boat just strolled out off the shore and got to the same point that he did and just knocking him with the waves. And he said, I just got angry at nobody. Where did that anger come from? It didn't come from that guy because there's no guy on the boat. So the anger must be inside me. And I've always thought that anger comes because you do something to me. But there was nobody doing anything to him. So anger is a property that we own very desperately, actually. Alexander came, conquering the world, comes across to India, comes across the Afghan border, comes to India, and he reaches a very large river up in the north and finds that he's not looking around to see how to cross it because it's overflowing. And he sees this seeker sitting on the below a tree meditating. She's going up and down on his horse trying to find the best way to cut across, and he's saying, this guy is not even getting bothered, I've got my whole million army and so on and so forth. He goes across to him and he says, gentlemen, what are you doing here? He says, I'm trying to find peace. He says, but isn't that a classic waste of time? He says, what are you doing here? He said, don't you know who I am? He says, no, I don't read Facebook. He says, I am so-and-so, the great, etc., etc. He says, so what are you doing here? He said, I've come to do fateh, I've come to conquer the world. I'm going to conquer your country and then I'm going to go beyond. He said, then what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to conquer the next country, etc., etc. And I'm going to go ahead and conquer the world. He said, then what are you going to do? He said, after I finish conquering the world, I'm going to sit under a tree and relax. So he looks at him, he said, are you stupid or what? I'm doing that right now. So the point is, what are we looking for? What's the end game? Because if you're trying to do something and that's not going to get your end game, are you really doing it because you want to do it or because you're looking for something else that's going to come out of that? Ravan, we've all heard the story. Ravan was supposed to be a Tikakar Pandit. It's, as you read the scriptures, it says that he was a very, very knowledgeable fan. He had all the Vedas at the back of his fingertips and so on and so forth. And that's what we look for. We look for knowledge. And he was very, very learned scholar, apparently. But what happened? He fell for one of his vices. One thief got him. One. Probably didn't have many of the others. He was supposed to be a very benevolent king and so on and so forth, as I understand. And that got his whole empire down. So whether it's the monk's anger, or the greed of Alexander, or the lust for Ravan, any one thing out of balance can ruin you for life. And it doesn't matter what you've been doing for decades and decades and trying to create and so on and so forth. And I think one of the fundamental problems with that is because I think people were created probably to be loved. And things were created to be used. I think what's happened is pretty much the reverse. I think the chaos in the world exists because now things are being loved and people are probably being used. So if you're looking for happiness, we really can't find it in any of those things that we're looking for. We're certainly going to find it in things, that's for sure. So it takes me to my next theme about why are we like this? What happens to us? Why do we become like this? So let's look at the construct of how we are brought up and religion and all these values and stuff into our daily lives. We've all been students, we've all been to schools, we probably have some kids going to school now and so on and so forth. So what does our education system teach us? What do we imbibe from all this schooling and studying and so on? Competitiveness, focus on percentages, comparisons, positions, smarter, faster, better, brighter. We even segregate now the super smart from the super dumb. We have separate schools for the super smart. We have separate areas for the super, etc., etc. And we've now created this environment with a kid that old that he has to be told up front that, teri buddhi brushed hai, you're a little handicapped in your top story and so on and so forth. So we start telling a child from the very beginning of our lives that you're not like the rest of them. You're better than him, you're worse than him, try like him, etc., etc. And we do this at home, we do this in our schools. So I have two cousins' story that I'd like to share. It happened pretty much in the same time space. So these kids came back from school, and one parent asks his daughter, he says, so how were the exams, what did you get? He said, Papa, I came third. What? You came third? Get out of here. You're going to be grounded for the next 2 weeks, blah, 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 etc., etc. So she's crying, goes off and on. So the other uncle asks his kid, son, how was the exam? So he says, Papa, pretty okay. He said, how much you get? I got 88%. What? 88%? Brilliant. Let's go and buy you something. And he goes and buys himself a Nintendo Atari at that point in time. And this is happening, with the family, and we've seen it, heard the stories, etc., from our cousins and so on and so forth. And we're like, okay, that sounds logical. It's pretty fair. And the question I want to ask is, which one would you like? Which kid would you want? You want the kid who comes third in class, or do you want who gets 88%? You don't want him in class, that's fair. So the girl got 94%. She came third, she'd come second last time. She came third, she got 94%, and she got banished for 2 weeks to be grounded and so on and so forth. And the kid goes and gets a gift for himself. And I think the point is, what is our scale? Is our scale how good our kid is? Or our scale is how good is our kid compared to your child? And on which scale? Is it 360 or is it a particular angle and so on and so forth? So there's a quote that says, do not educate your child to be rich. Educate him to be happy. So when he grows up, he will know the value of things, not their price. And I don't know whether we are actually doing that in our society today. So what do we really want from our children as they grow up? What do we want them to be? What do I want my kid to be? I have broad themes that I keep on telling my kids I want them to grow up to be. I want them to have strong values and a moral character, to have the ability to stand up for what's right, to have an engaging and enduring personality, because that kind of wins more than your marks and so on and so forth, to build and hold on to relationships. That seems to be a tough job nowadays, especially when you go up to the ups and downs of life. To be a responsible citizen and a family member, and to know and realize that there is a larger purpose in life. I feel that many of these things actually don't get talked about in this thing. There's a quote by a French Johnny called Henry David Thoreau, if I get it right. It says, the price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. But we can't really trade our life if we don't know what it is worth, if we don't understand who we are. So we must find the answer to that question. And if there's something else that you want to write down this. I think you must ask yourself a question. Who am I? Who are you? Okay, and the I I'll come back to in a bit. But who am I? Two of the most powerful words, I am. Simply because you write what comes after that. It's in your hands to write what comes after that. What you're going to put after that is going to define who you are for the rest of your life. So, who am I? Is a question that you must ask yourself and be able to address that adequately. So, my next theme is about finding meaning, finding what the true meaning is. We all have a gift. We have to find where our gift is. Pablo Picasso says it very beautifully. Says, the meaning of life is to find a gift. The meaning of life is to find a gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. It's beautiful. And you can't give it away till you don't find it. You certainly can't use it if you don't know what it is. Mother Teresa's quote, I find that very, very beautiful, and I'm pretty sure many of you can relate to that. People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you're honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For you see, it's in the end, it's between you and God. It is never between you and them anyway. So many of the questions that we're talking about don't really have very well-established answers. I believe some of these contradictions are actually better answered through the tenets of our philosophies from the past. Deep down in our hearts, we probably know, but we probably, in this world, we keep that down because it doesn't get talked about. And here, I think spirituality probably plays a larger role than religious dogma. I believe we're very good in SOPs, right? Each of our companies, probably even our homes with both couples working, we make all sorts of SOPs. ये menu हफ्ते का है, ये ऐसे करेंगे, ये खरीदने का है. Everything is SOP. Even religion has become an SOP. All our teachings of our saints have become SOPs now. Okay? So, foolproof formula. We'll go every weekend and go to a place of worship. We'll bow, we'll light a lamp, we'll take a chakkar, all the rest of it. You know how it works. We'll do a little prayer, probably on the side, make a little contract with God, make a deal. You give me this and I'll give you this much, or I'll come so many times, or I'll give you my hair. He really wants your hair, by the way. He really likes it, flowing, stuff like that. You make a little deal with him, take a circle and go back home. It's a damn good SOP. You do it religiously, you do it regularly, you do it exactly the same way your parents did it. You'll walk the same steps. You won't miss the same step that he did, and so on and so forth. Your child wants to even try and walk the same bricks that you walked on, and so on and so forth. And we do this pretty well. We all have kids, seemingly here. So let's talk about one story. I'm pretty sure you've read it. It goes around quite a bit. So this dad and his daughter is going to one of the temples, and suddenly the daughter starts to scream and shout, getting all hysterical about this lion on the doorsteps of the temple that she just saw, and she said, "Papa, Papa, bachao, bachao," all that kind of stuff. And the dad looks at her and says, "What's wrong with you? They are just statues. They're not going to hurt you in any way. Come along." So she looks at him, all composed suddenly. I don't know how these girls can do this. If those lion statues won't harm us, Dad, how will that statue inside give you blessings? The fact is, we will go and negotiate with the shopkeeper to buy that statue, and we'll negotiate for him because we'll put a price on that guy. He'll say $50, and he'll say, "No, 20 rupees doge," and blah, blah, blah. And finally negotiate 30 or 40 or whatever. So a $40 statue, negotiated price to get God to your house, suddenly becomes a guy who's going to give you billions of dollars. You just put $40 as the price tag on the poor bugger. He's going to give you a percentage of that as his ROI. And he's become the Almighty. And the fact that you walk on the same stone every day and so on and so forth don't bother you, because that's exactly where the statue came from. That shouldn't bother us at all. So kids have become smart today. So imagine a kid coming and telling you, after a school day, "Mom, I went to school today. I touched the teacher's feet. I took her around to the school. I drank from the teacher's glass. I plucked a hair from his head. I put it in my book, this thing. I brought a little chalk on my forehead. Knowledge transfer, much faster. Took photographs of all my teachers. Put it on my desk at home. Laid them up very nicely. And I've been praying to them the whole week. And that science book, I hold it in one hand, Mom. and I hold the chalk in the other, but that's the one the teacher writes on. And I keep chanting, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Sharma, etc. And mom, trust me, I will crack this exam. And what will you look at the child and tell her? You will tell the child that she's probably gone a bit cuckoo, take her to the doctor. Please take her to the doctor, it's good for me. Would the kid get any enlightenment of science? Probably not, but we are expecting to get enlightenment of our own kind by doing the same thing in what we called finding spiritual nirvana. I think there's a bit of a disconnect here that we should be looking at. Just looking at the time clock and trying to see where I can rush through. So we need to question a little bit of some of these faiths and philosophies that we have, all these religious activities and SOPs that we've created. Do we actually ever question, why do we do Diwali, we celebrate Holi yesterday, why, what is the meaning of it, what's the background of it, why is there something called Thanksgiving, etc. There are dates, they've been calendarized, we do them regularly year on year, we've grown up. When a kid asks you a question at 3, you say, shut up, you don't understand anything. By the time he's 14, he actually shuts up because he thinks he'll get reprimanded for understanding. He doesn't want to be grounded because he's asking stupid questions. He's already been trained in. But actually, have you ever thought about it? Every religious institution has some kind of light. Okay, it's a diya, there's fire in different places, there's a candle, everything has a light. And every religious institution has a sound. Okay, whether somebody's playing kirtan, there are carols being sung some places, bhajans and some places. Everybody has some form of light and some form of sound. If that were the only way to get enlightenment, I think all of us should have got it by now. If not us, if we don't go to these places, our parents certainly would have got it by now. There's probably a reason why these exist. So Rumi says, there's a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. That doesn't mean he's talking external sound, because he's not even using words. He's looking at something else. He's looking beyond what our physical ears can do. The Bible says, having eyes you see not, having ears you hear not, and do you not remember? Granth Sahib, and I'm sorry for my quotation if I'm a little off. Tango vaje bolna, bin kanno sunna, bin akkha dekhna. Talk without your tongue, see without your eyes, and hear without your ears. They're obviously not talking about external manifestations of light and sound. So there's something that we are missing in this religious SOP that we're not really cracking, especially by going around all these places. So we greet each other. Do we even know what our greetings mean? Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Walaikum Salam. Hebrew has Shalom Alchem. Namaste, I bow to the God within you. Sat Sri Akal, the nature of the Supreme is truth. Shalom Alchem, again apologies for the pronunciation. Peace to the Supreme. Salam Walaikum, peace be unto you. Walaikum Salam, and unto you, peace. They all say the same thing. We just don't understand the language, so we've created our own sets of barriers and castes and so on and so forth. What is mandir? What is a mandir? It's man, andir. What is a gurudwara? It's guru ka dwar. What's a temple? The Bible says, do you not know that you're a temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? They're not external manifestations. These are just reminders. You have a TV room in your house, you watch TV. You have a bedroom where you sleep. You have a playroom where you play. You have a study where you work. You don't necessarily mix up the two. When you go to office, you think of work. When you go home, you think of relaxing in your kids. They are meant for reminders. They're not the eventual destination. If they were, we'd probably be all sitting in nirvana by now and not really necessarily spending any time in these kind of conversations. So I think there's a bit of a gap in our translation, so to speak. So my last one, and I'm now going to be jammed by Shaurya for sure, talking about finding the way. So what is the way? This is a personal journey. This is not a cut and paste job. You can't take mine, I can't take yours. You have to find your own answers to my mind. It's a journey of inquiry. It's a journey of actually finding the I in the who am I, which we talked about earlier. So we often actually end up stopping at the smaller I. What's the smaller I? Who am I? I'm so-and-so. I'm from so-and-so. I do so-and-so. I'm worth so-and-so. I am followed by so-and-so and so-and-so category. We get stuck on that smaller I. And that smaller I starts becoming bigger for us. But that's not the eventual I. There is another I that we have to find. You have to find the I in the who am I. And once we start looking and searching for that deeper, bigger I, we'll start getting some answers. it's a journey of inquiry, of introspection, of an internal search, not an external search, but an internal search to find the real I. I'll end with two quotes before I get any guns around here. No. One of Mahatma Gandhi that I thought was very, very apt, considering the time that he was around and the kind of strife that was happening in our country. Whilst everything around me is ever changing, ever dying, there is underlying all that change a living power that is changeless, that holds all together, that creates, dissolves, and recreates. That informing power or spirit is God. And is the power benevolent or malevolent? I see it as a purely benevolent power. For I can see that in the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists. Hence I gather that God is life, truth, light. He is love. He is the supreme God. And I want to end with a quote that I love and I use very often in my life that says, everything is all right at the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to request Poonam Shah Shrina to kindly step on stage and honor the guests with a little memento from our end. A big round of applause to this gentleman on stage for honoring us with his presence. The topic of his talk was finding the meaning of life. Ladies and gentlemen, the man himself, Mr. Shivendra Mohan Singh. Please put your hands together for him. Please make some noise for him. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is TAKEPRIDE 2016. Requesting everyone to kindly stay in your seats. The next speaker will be coming on right away.